Welcome to Global Journeys with Jill Dutton, the captivating travel podcast that takes you on an extraordinary adventure around the world. I'm your host, Jill Dutton, and I am thrilled to be your guide through the mesmerizing tapestry of cultures, landscapes, and experiences that await us. Global Journeys with Jill Dutton is more than just a travel podcast. It's an exploration of humanity itself. Through the power of storytelling, we illuminate the lives of the remarkable individuals we encounter along the way. Whether it's through the eyes of a fishing guide, a distillery owner, a mixologist, a historian, chef, or even a farmer, each person we meet adds a rich layer to the narrative of culture and place. In this podcast, we embark on a transformative journey where the focus goes beyond the typical tourist attractions. Instead, we dive deep into the hearts and souls of the places we visit, uncovering the hidden gems and untold stories that make each destination truly unique. Join me as we venture off the beaten path, seeking authenticity, connection, and a deeper understanding of the world we inhabit. Together, we'll unravel the tapestry of cultures, one story at a time. Although my writing career began in the late 90s when I created and launched a wellness publication called Evolving Magazine, since 2015 I've worked as a travel writer on a mission to seek out the locally celebrated foods, liquor trends, outdoor activities, and stories of those I meet along the way. My work has been published in Wine Enthusiast, Afar, Woman's World, First for Women, Insider, Road Trippers, Modern Farmer, Chilled Magazine, and many more digital and print publications. I'm also the creator of Global Plates, The People We Meet, The Food They Eat, a syndicated column. Creating this podcast is the next step in my journey of sharing the stories of the people I've met along the way. So pack your curiosity, leave your preconceived notions behind, and let's embark on Global Journeys with Jill Dutton, where each episode promises to inspire, educate, and awaken the wanderlust within us all. Last week's episode of Global Journeys with Jill Dutton, we traveled to Chattanooga, Tennessee, to speak with an artist I had met at the farmer's market selling his art. This week takes us back again to Chattanooga, this time to meet with Jonathan Ferguson, chef de cuisine at Main Street Meats. Main Street Meats is a neighborhood butcher shop and restaurant located in the south side of Chattanooga, one of the city's most thriving neighborhoods. Devoted to the reemergence of the traditional Southern butcher shop, co-owners Eric and Amanda Neal work closely with Chattanooga's surrounding farmland to explore the distinctive flavors of the region. In addition to a curated retail selection of meats, cheeses, and other provisions, Main Street Meats' restaurant menu is updated daily for lunch and dinner, along with a rotating list of craft beers, wine, and cocktails. Placing a value on tradition and butchery as an art form, the team utilizes whole animal butchery as well as other craft techniques that have survived and evolved throughout generations. By supporting local farms who are stewards of the land and deeply committed to animal quality and care, Main Street Meats aims to create the best experience for the animal, farmer, and the community. The bar program offers a rotating list of cocktails, including cocktails on draft, craft beer, and a curated wine list. The spirit selections are whiskey forward, featuring a variety of over 280 bottles. Our guest today, Jonathan Ferguson, grew up on the northern Gulf Coast in Mobile, Alabama. With a 12-month growing season, southern home cooking, and some of the best seafood in the country, Jonathan learned to appreciate simply prepared foods that allowed the ingredients to shine. It's a style of cooking that guides his culinary career to this day. In high school, Jonathan moved to Switzerland for a year and traveled throughout Europe, an experience that opened his mind to all sorts of different cultures, histories, and cuisines. He's learned about people's differences, but also the things that bring people together. More often than not, it was around a table of food that Jonathan was able to find those common threads. His professional life brought Jonathan and his partner to Chattanooga, a city that had everything they were looking for: hiking, camping, kayaking, and a well-known chef named Eric Neal. Not only did Chef Neal have the caliber of restaurants that Jonathan had grown used to, he also seemed to be the type of mentor who would give Jonathan the room to grow both professionally and personally. Jonathan joined the team at Main Street Meats in 2022 as sous chef and today runs the kitchen as chef de cuisine. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jonathan Ferguson to Global Journeys with Jill Dutton. Jonathan, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights on Main Street Meats, as well as the outdoor recreation you found in Chattanooga.
Well, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Before we dive into Main Street Meats and your work there as chef de cuisines, let's look briefly at Chattanooga as a destination. Since you're an outdoor enthusiast, I see that you enjoy hiking and camping and kayaking. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When you relocated with your partner to Chattanooga, what was it about the area? Because I know it is like a mecca for outdoor enthusiasts as far as climbing and hiking and so many things to do. What was it that drew you there, and how has the city lived up to your expectations?
Well, I think when one of the first things, when we were whittling down our list of places that we wanted to go, Chattanooga just kept checking all the yes boxes.
Uh-huh.
And one of the first things I think was just the amount of trailheads within like a 30-minute drive of downtown Chattanooga is something like 50 trailheads or something. So, we knew that we were going to, coming from Houston, we would have to drive an hour and a half just to get away from the city
Mm-hmm.
to have a halfway decent hike. Where here in Chattanooga, we can go to Stringer's Ridge, which is still within the city limits, and have a beautiful hike. And if you
Yeah.
drive 30 minutes away, you get into the Cumberland Trail, which is a really cool project in the area of linking different segments of trails together,
Mm-hmm.
creating one bigger trail. That really kind of was like, all right, we know that we're going to be able to do the things we love. Then you put on top of that it's, not a small town.
Right.
So for me and my line of work, that helps.
Uh-huh.
Um, but also, I spent a lot of time in Chicago. I spent a lot of time in Houston, and it was, having that sort of like urban feel at the same time was really kind of, I think, what drew us here. Are, not sacrificing any of these kind of amenities that we had grown used to,
Yes.
but having access to all the things that we really, the hiking has been number one on our list of things that we love doing here. But getting it, taking the boat in, when my kids are here for the summer,
Uh-huh.
well, teaching them to kayak in the creek and taking them to swimming holes and all of that kind of stuff. It's just things that I was not getting that my soul needed.
Yes.
For my career, Chicago was great. Houston was great. That was all part of it. But to be able to come to a town like Chattanooga, get all of these things that I was missing in my life without having to sacrifice, the opportunity to work with a great chef like Chef Eric Neal, it really just all started to make sense. And that's how we ended up here.
As far as Chattanooga as a destination, do you have any specific suggestions for someone visiting as far as outdoor activities? Because we're going to talk about food, but I just want to wrap up this topic.
Yeah, like the thing about Chattanooga as a destination is that when you're in Chattanooga, there are so many things that you can do just right here in Chattanooga. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's location, not just, the physical beauty of its surroundings, but its proximity to other like major southern cities like Nashville, Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
People can come to Chattanooga as a place to escape the hustle and bustle of the big city. But on the flip side of that, there's so many rural areas around, we're surrounded by rural Eastern Tennessee. So people can also come to Chattanooga as a chance to get to the big city. So I
Yes.
think it's really unique in that aspect that you have people coming to visit here for two completely different purposes. And then once you're here, I love getting out on the Cumberland Trail. There's a
Mm-hmm.
segment right north of Chattanooga. It's the Rock Creek segment, or the Three Gorges segment with the Rock Creek section in that, which is, you're hiking and you're 30 minutes from a good art scene, up and coming food scene, a small city, and you can go on a walk and not see anything made by man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the ability to do that is, what makes Chattanooga so cool to come and visit.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into your experiences and Main Street Meats. I read that you grew up in Mobile and that you later spent a year in Europe. I can imagine that both of those really influenced your style of cooking, but they're so different. So I'm curious, how are those expressions showing up in the dishes that you prepare?
Well, it's funny like that time, that year over in Europe, I
Mm,
think, it wasn't just about the year in Europe. It was about coming back and
yeah.
seeing, the southeastern US through eyes that I had not seen it through before. Like when,
Interesting.
I had seen just what I had seen and that's it. And
Mm-hmm.
then I went and saw a whole different world. And then to come back and look at the world that I had grown up in through a new set of lenses, yeah, absolutely. It has an influence on my style of cooking. But I think a lot of it is just finding that commonality,
Mm-hmm.
between cultures. I think that was the biggest thing for me, was, I would look at something I had grown up eating and then, see it in a different culture, their same interpretation of the idea. Um,
Right, right.
so, and it's really neat to be in Chattanooga where I can be kind of walking through the mountains and, you know, feel like I'm back in Switzerland and
Mm-hmm.
then go back and put on a dish that took me back to that point in time in my life, but as seen through where I am right
Okay, so as far as Main Street meats, when you moved to Chattanooga, is that what brought you there? And if so, what is it that piqued your interest enough to lead you to Main Street meats?
the start of it all was Chef Eric Neal. I knew I wanted to come work for him.
Mm-hmm.
We met a few times before I moved out here. Talked by email and decided it was going to be a good fit, but he didn't really have a spot for me at the time. And it he made a spot for me, and I actually spent the first 6 weeks or so I was here in the kitchen over at Easy Bistro, just kind of hanging out on the sidelines until they needed some help over at Main Street Meats, and so I went over there. I was like, "Where you tell me where to go, I go." And it wasn't necessarily one restaurant in particular that drew me out here, but more of a person that drew me out here when it comes to my career. I
Mm-hmm.
knew I wanted to work with someone like Eric Neal. I'd worked with some really great chefs in the past, and this point in my career, I want to decide who I'm working with, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worked out great for both of us so far. It's interesting that I ended up at Main Street Meats because in Houston, I was at a restaurant that was more produce driven.
Mm-hmm.
So then to go to a butcher shop
Oh,
and
yeah.
take over the kitchen there, it was wildly different. But I think that part of the success that we've had over the past couple of years at Main Street Meats is precisely because of that. I approached the kitchen, with that background of like, we have all this beautiful seasonal produce available to us, especially during the peak seasons.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many different things we can do with that. People are going to come to Main Street Meats and order steaks. They're just going to do it. There's
Yes.
nothing you can do about it. Now, if we want to really, expand our market and get, people in there that may not want to come and eat steak, we're
Mm-hmm.
proudly not vegan, but we will put some vegan dishes on the menu
Uh,
because everybody's welcome there. And I think that my background, in seasonal produce driven kitchen has really led to a lot of success there at Main Street.
yes. Can you share a little bit about the philosophy behind Main Street Meats being both a restaurant and a butchery? How does that come together? And what is kind of the reception, I guess? How does it affect the dining experience?
I think from a customer perspective, I think it's really cool to be able to walk in, get a dry aged ribeye, and man, that's so good. I just want that
Mm-hmm.
again and again and again, and be able to walk over to the counter and buy the same dry aged ribeye to take home and cook for yourself.
Right, right.
I think that aspect is really cool. But I I could go on for days about the philosophy of all of this. I love the fact that it's right next door to a bakery because then that again reminds me of being back in Europe where you would go to the butcher shop and buy your meat, then you go over to the bakery, buy your bread, then you would go over to the market and buy your produce, and then
Yes.
you would go home. It wasn't this one centralized grocery store or supermarket. You went to different places that specialized in different things. So having Need Love's Bakery right next door to Main Street Meats, and
Mm-hmm.
they're using our product, we're using their product, and people are shopping along the way as they walk down Main Street, I think creates a really unique customer experience.
Oh, for sure. And oh my gosh, that burger that I had there was like the best I've ever had. And
I mean, anytime you're grinding the meat right there, off the whole animal, you're gonna get a better product. I mean, it's
yes,
simple. I mean, the fewer hands it touches before it gets to your mouth, the better. And
yes.
then you take on top of that just the practice of whole animal butchery,
Mm-hmm.
something that is lost in our culture. You just don't see it the way you used to see it. And these are important things to hold on to, not just because it's reminds us where our food comes from. But I mean, I always talk about the zombie apocalypse. You're gonna want to butcher. Like
Uh-huh.
when we're all living off the land, and if nobody remembers how to do that, we've
Right.
lost this important part of our own history of survival. Now,
Yeah.
so that's is kind of a fun way to look at it. And then all of the stuff that they're doing with the meat, all the charcuterie that they're making. Again, we're not buying our salami from some guy that's loading it off a truck. We're taking the pork scraps off of the whole animal
Mm-hmm.
and making salami out of that. And that's and going through these old techniques that are existed for hundreds of years. And we're
Yes.
still keeping those alive. And I think that there's something to be said for remembering our past through food.
Oh, absolutely. And what you said about the utilizing the entire animal. When I was a kid growing up, my dad made scrapple. Have you heard of
Oh
scrapple?
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and that originated, I believe, in Pennsylvania, but it was
Yep.
that using up every piece of the animal so that they could, and it was delicious. I mean, we loved it, and oxtail soup, and
Oh,
things like that that used to be considered maybe a lesser piece of meat, whereas now it's being elevated into craft and becoming this great asset. So I'm so happy to hear that you're doing that.
well,
And
I mean, and I think a lot of it also just goes back to respect, like respect
mhm,
for the animal, respect to the rancher, respect to the customer. We are able to offer all of this stuff at a very reasonable price because we are doing things like using the whole animal.
mhm,
I mean, all of that translates to, what I hope to be a better customer experience and being able to get such great product, at your table at a
yes.
cost that's really not, you're not going to have the sticker shock that you might have at some other restaurants.
Okay, yeah. Well, and I have one more question about it. So it's a Southern butcher shop, and I'm just kind of curious, how do you define traditional Southern butcher shop, and how does
Well,
Main Street Meats embody this concept?
a Southern butcher shop because we're in the South. Yeah.
Mhm, uh-huh.
And most of the guys working in that butcher shop and in that kitchen are from the South. So, we're sort of, attacking it all from that perspective. But I
Mhm,
mean, we're also using techniques and ingredients that came from the old world or from Africa or the South America, Central America. We're celebrating and exploring those techniques through our own personal experiences, which for the most part are a bunch of Southern guys.
mhm,
And women. But it's not just that we're a Southern butcher shop. It's that, we we are a butcher shop that not only explores how the rest of these cultures influenced what we do today. And
mhm.
Southern food in general has such a global perspective. If you look at influences from Africa, influences from Europe, influences from Central America, it really allows us to explore all of that with authenticity.
Yes, yes. And how about any signature dishes or anything that's either hyper local? I mean, I know you source everything from local farmers and things like that, but I'm just curious of like the peanuts and the Coke. I mean, that was an interesting, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of fun with stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, we have signature, we have signature dishes, but one thing that we really strive to do in using as much local product as possible,
Mm-hmm.
we don't always know what's going to be available to us. We get
Right.
an email on Monday and then it shows up on Wednesday. We get an email saying, we have all of this wonderful produce available. What do you want? And then it's like, okay, all
Mm-hmm.
right, we want that. And then we're going to make this out of it. And so much of what we do is constantly changing, constantly evolving based on what is readily available to us in that moment. So that kind of makes it hard for us to have these signature dishes. Of course, our burger,
Yes.
love our burger. People
Mm-hmm.
love coming in for our dry age program and trying different dry age cuts of both beef and pork.
And
Uh,
that potato salad I had was amazing.
yeah. And so these sort of like staple things,
Mm-hmm.
that we have: the potato salad, the burgers, the dry age program, all the steaks. That's people come in for that. A lot of people from out of town come in for that, but
Mm-hmm.
we can't just rely on people from out of town. So, in order to keep our neighbors, the people who live right next door and all around us, keep them coming in, I think a lot of that comes from just our constant evolution in our menu. Things that change weekly,
Yes.
bi-weekly, and that sort of excitement and entertainment that comes along with that. So, they got a new dip on this week, or there's a new produce-driven small plate. I'm going to go try that one out. The last one was so great.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping that. So it's almost gotten to a point where, yes, we have these signature dishes, but people are almost coming in more now to be entertained by what we're exploring with all the things that are available to us in that moment.
Perfect. Perfect. Now, this 280 different whiskey selection, that's massive. And I'm curious, do you know what led Eric and Amanda to focus on that, to have that large of a selection?
I'll say this. Yeah, Eric Neal has forgotten more about bourbon and whiskey than I'll ever know. And so, I think a lot of times with us in this industry, we find something we love and then we just go down a rabbit hole and, do all the research and learn all of the things.
So
And
he was just thinking meat and whiskey. Those were
yeah, and it goes great together. And what I think is really cool is his the ability of Main Street Meats to offer all of these different whiskeys to people,
Mm-hmm.
and in a way that educates people. So I mean, people are almost coming here and the whiskey knowledge in Chattanooga is great. And I think a lot of that has to do with, the education that Eric Neal has been able to give people through restaurants like Main Street Meats and Easy Bistro.
Mm-hmm. And I know Chattanooga Whiskey Company is represented there. Are there other regional type brands that are?
Absolutely. I mean, Eric loves to go up into Kentucky and, pick some, single barrels out from Weller.
Mm-hmm.
He's recently gotten something from Buffalo Trace. Then you have Dickel, which is right here in Tennessee. So yeah, I mean, we're sort of in like a hotbed for whiskey. It's
I know.
you just throw a stick and you throw a rock and you'll find probably a pretty decent distillery somewhere around here.
Wonderful.
So I think that that being here in the middle of it all, helps people get into it.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Chattanooga as a food destination, then, how does Main Street Meats fit into that? And is it typical, or is this something unique to the destination? And someone visiting Chattanooga, how is it expanding as a foodie destination?
Well, all right. Let me see if I can
That was a
unpack that.
lot there.
Yeah. All right. So, no, Main Street Meats is completely. It's not just unique to Chattanooga. I think
Mm-hmm.
most people who come here do not have a local neighborhood butcher shop, and if they do, I highly doubt that they have a local neighborhood butcher shop with 70 seats to sit down and enjoy a great
Yes.
meal, from local produce to local animals. It's a completely unique experience, not just for Chattanooga, but I think
Mm-hmm.
for a large portion of the population in this country.
I agree.
So I think that that makes it really unique and different. Now, when it comes to Chattanooga's food scene as a whole, I it feels like it's, there are people that will say it's a great food town, and it is. For its size, it is a really great food town. I still think it's in its adolescence, though,
Mm-hmm.
and when we're in our adolescence, we're starting to identify ourselves outside of our parents. So we are starting to identify ourselves outside of these bigger cities around us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of times, like when we're kids, our identity is based around our parents, and then and once we get into our adolescence, we start trying new things, pushing away from those things that we identified ourselves with previously to find our own identity. And I think that's kind of where Chattanooga is right now. There are
Okay.
there are a lot of really talented chefs finding their own voice, pushing, what they know. And and as Chattanooga is growing, because it is growing,
Mm-hmm.
there's no denying that, more perspectives are coming, both from the customer as well as new cooks and new chefs, myself included, coming in, bringing in our own perspective and helping, be a part of that conversation of like, what is the Chattanooga food scene?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we know right now. We're still figuring that out. There are some, I love several restaurants in this town, but most of them are kind of, tucked away in a seedy strip mall or something like that, or forever. I will always love going to breakfast at the Waffle House.
Yeah.
But so as a destination, man, this is actually a really cool time to be here because you're getting to see
Mm-hmm.
it figure itself out. And while at times that can be a little confusing and maybe not everything works out, it's all part of the growth to get to where we're going to be next.
Excellent. Perfect. Jonathan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. And Cheryl, I'm hungry and so I can't wait to return to Chattanooga again, because I'm in Kansas City. We're a meat city as well.
Oh yeah. I mean,
And
I love Kansas City. I that was a town I looked at for a while.
oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I had a good friend from Kansas City. I used to go down for 4th of July every year. We would go to Liberty, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it
Oh,
was,
wonderful.
man, I love Kansas City. So
Wonderful. Well, I can't wait to return to Chattanooga and eat some more of the, the steaks and the hamburgers and things that Main Street meats. So,
all the meats.
and that potato salad, it's just such an unusual thing to keep thinking about, but it's a warm, but yet it was not like a German style warm potato salad. I mean, it was like it was fried potatoes, and then
Yeah.
it was just incredible.
I mean, it's hard to beat. It can be
Something
terrifying how much I actually eat of that.
Oh, I know. I don't want to know how many calories are in it, but it's just such a traditional dish, but yet you guys really made it.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of, when we are doing things like that, we're creating these paradoxes, it's two different things at the same time. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that, we've taken this dish that's such a traditional, side, especially in Southern culture. And then kind of, again, through our travels, through our experiences, looked at it again through a different set of eyes and created something very unique.
Yes. Wow. Well, Jonathan, thank you so very much. And I can't wait to come back and visit again.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jill. And you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, Jonathan. As we travel on this exciting podcasting journey together, I invite you, our incredible audience, to be a part of it. Share your own travel stories, insights, and recommendations with us. Whether you have a hidden gem in your hometown or a dream destination that has captured your imagination, we want to hear from you. Your suggestions will help shape the future episodes of Global Journeys with Jill Dutton, guiding us towards extraordinary locations and experiences that deserve a spotlight. Remember, this podcast is not about just the host or the guests. It's about the collective exploration and discovery that unites us all as wanderers in this vast world. So reach out to us through our website, social media channels, or email and let your voice be heard. Send your suggestions to me at jill@global globaljourneyswithjilldutton.com. I can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, may your travels be filled with endless curiosity, open-hearted encounters, and transformative adventures. Safe travels, fellow explorers, and keep wandering.